This episode is brought to you by Odyssey Mushroom Elixir. This month is National Mushroom Month, and we are celebrating the incredible power of functional mushrooms with Odyssey Sparkling Mushroom Elixir. Odyssey contains 2,750 milligrams of lion's mane and cordyceps mushrooms that have been shown to increase brain function, mood, memory, and boost energy.
With Odyssey Mushroom Elixir, there's no need to settle for a drink that's full of chemicals and empty calories. The flavors are delicious. There are caffeinated and uncaffeinated options, and I love to use it as a mocktail at parties, as an afternoon pick-me-up, and while I love all of the flavors, my favorite is the sparkling dragon fruit lemonade. If you want to try Odyssey Mushroom Elixir, you can take 20% off your purchase today with code CWPodcast at odysseyelixir.com. All of that information can be found in our show notes or link tree on Instagram. Welcome to Courageous Wellness. My name is Erica Stein.
And I'm Allie French, and this is a podcast about individual journeys within wellness and how to navigate it all.
After Allie experienced a cancer diagnosis in her 20s,
and Erica went through a self-love journey, we created a platform to interview real people from all walks of life that have combined all types of practices. From physical wellness to emotional and spiritual, we hear courageous stories and focus on why it's important to share them.
We are both certified integrative nutrition health coaches, and together with our community are learning to live our most purposeful lives by sharing one courageous story at a time.
It takes courage to share these journeys, and by talking about them, we aim to destigmatize the process. We want you to be your own health advocate, feel educated and informed on the latest in health and wellness, and empower you to feel your absolute best.
And because we want to bring forth a wide variety of stories, the opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect our own, but we hope the diverse and varied stories will empower you to make the best choices for your own life. So join us as we and our community share our courageous wellness.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Courageous Wellness. We have a great conversation this week with Shea Gomez of No Booze Babes, and we're going to get into that conversation and Shea's work shortly. But before we do, we're going to talk a little bit about our updates as we normally do, our weekly recaps. And one of mine is actually kind of related to the topic of conversation today with Shea, but I was recently traveling like over Labor Day weekend, and I was out to dinner with friends on the East Coast, and we went to a really yummy kind of like eclectic restaurant with like a lot of different culinary influences, and they had like a specialty mocktail on their specials, and I ordered it because it was a phony Negroni, and I love Negronis, but as most of our audience knows, I've been pretty off the booze this year. And so it was such a nice, just like fun option to have that night. It was pretty good too. And
Yeah.
I don't go for them like all the time, because actually one of my favorite drinks that I used to drink a lot, I discovered through drinking like the fake version of Campari or Aperol. Like both either like the real stuff or the fake stuff still uses like red dye. So I don't really like to consume that a lot for obvious reasons. But that once in a while kind of thing, I was happy to have the option to have it when everybody else was having a cocktail. And I felt much better next morning. A phony
Negroni. I love
We're all
that.
about the mocktails here. We are all about the mocktails.
You know, it reminds me, over the summer, I went, I was like a tourist in our own city of Los Angeles, and I went to the Vanderpump restaurants, right? I went to Tom Tom, and I went to Sir and Pump and all of it. And it was so fun. But I was actually so impressed when I went to Sir, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of the Vanderpump universe. And they didn't just have one mocktail. They didn't just have non-alcoholic beer. They had a full long mocktail menu filled with like mocktails of everything you could want. And I was so impressed. And yes, there's sober cast members on the show. So I'm sure that influences their menu. But I was just like, this is so rad because I'm also somebody, I took a year off drinking alcohol. I'm not a big drinker myself. And I just it like you said, like if everyone else is having a cocktail, it's nice to be able to partake in having a mocktail if you can, right? If you are, sober curious, or you're just choosing not to drink, because we've done a lot of episodes now on sober curiosity because it's an interest of ours, it's an interest of our community. And, we know that, yes, if you choose to drink alcohol, can be something you enjoy, but there's really no health benefits. It's a neurotoxin. It's not great for us, right? So it's great to see that there's so many more options out there. And even for
Yes.
myself, I'm going to talk. My big update this week is I have fall TV content. So, like, content I'm enjoying or re enjoying. But, I think a lot of times too with drinking in general, it's like the ritual aspect of it. It's like you want to have a little glass of something sparkling or bubbly or whatever. And it's the ritual I think people enjoy more than sometimes even the drinking.
Mhm.
And so, something I really love that's a mocktail, and it's actually one of the sponsors of our podcast, but I love it so much, is Odyssey Mushroom Elixir.
Yeah.
And my favorite flavor is the sparkling dragon fruit lemonade with lion's mane and cordyceps. It's so good. And, Odyssey Mushroom Elixir, it's delicious. They have caffeinated beverages, they have non-caffeinated beverages, but it is, filled with adaptogenic mushrooms, delicious flavors. It's sparkling. It's just really, really good and really tasty. And I love it. And so while I'm watching lots of fall content and like getting into like my, fake fall, because we're in Los Angeles vibes, like I find myself pulling out, an Odyssey mushroom elixir. And also, I take Odyssey when I know I don't want to drink and I'm going to a party or I'm doing something social and I don't know if they're going to have mocktails. I bring cans of mushroom Odyssey elixir and
Yeah.
I just love it. So, if you want to try Odyssey Mushroom Elixir, you can save 20% off with code CW Podcast. And all of that info is in our link tree and on Instagram, and it's also in our show notes. But yeah, I think we talk mocktails in this episode too a little bit
Yeah.
towards the end, but I just I'm loving it and I'm glad it's at more restaurants. And I love names like that, Phony Negroni. It's cute when it's like you
Cute.
just feel included. So
And
yeah.
I just wanted to like make a point about the Odyssey because yeah, for a while they use like a little bit of caffeine, and we actually did an episode with Scott Froman, the founder and CEO. If you want to learn more about it, but um, they do have this new Revive line that has like magnesium and zinc and all these kind of additional um benefits and don't have any caffeine in it too. So I think for like evening, that's a really nice thing. It's one thing if in the afternoon you want a little like it's not much caffeine. It's like somewhere around 60 to 80 grams. But if you want, check out the Revive, which you can also buy on the website. So I really am excited
Yeah.
about this new Revive line, which was
And
originally started for festivals, by the way. Fun fact.
yeah. And I mean, and I know as we're talking, and then I'll go into like my fall TV content update, but I know as we're talking about mushrooms, as we're talking about mocktails, obviously with the understanding that some people who
Yeah.
are sober cannot and do not choose to drink mocktails because it can be triggering to their sobriety. So of course, mocktails are not for everyone, but that's actually Mushroom Odyssey Elixir is not a mocktail. It's just a sparkling adaptogenic beverage. And so it's for everyone. It's definitely not a mocktail. So
Yeah.
because I do understand, and I know people who they do not drink, they are sober and they do not drink non-alcoholic beers. They do not drink mocktails because it's just not an avenue they want to go down. And I understand and respect that too. So
Totally
it's just a fun, sparkling, fizzy drink. But okay, so content, because I am back. So I've shared some updates. I've been like deep into like fantasy book talk, book world with like A Court of Thorns and Roses. But I've now since in like the last few weeks of September, I've started to transition into like my fall comfort TV. And there are 3 shows I watch every year. I feel like in September and October, like clockwork. And they are Vampire Diaries. I don't know
Okay.
if you, oh my
No,
God.
I've never watched it. Yeah.
It's, I was never into like the vampire craze, but I really do like Vampire Diaries. It's like a melodramatic teen drama
Yeah. I
with
watched True
vampires.
Blood.
I like True Blood too. It's
Yeah.
not, it's like a, it's like, it's like One Tree Hill or Gossip Girl, but it's with vampires, right?
Right.
It's like a
Right. Okay.
CW show.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I love it. I love it so much. And I'm currently in Vampire Diaries mode, but then I switch off because I also don't like to watch, even though it's not like scary. I'm very conscious of what I ingest before bed. So if it gets too late, I still don't want to watch like, people dying or vampire, like that's just
Yeah.
not my like nighttime vibe. So the other two I watch every September and October is Gilmore Girls
Okay.
and Gossip Girl.
That
They're my three.
tracks.
Right. Like
That all
it's just like
tracks.
comfort because it's like fall in New York City, right? Or it's like seeing New York City fall vibes. And like especially Gossip Girl really leads like their Thanksgiving episodes are so good. So it's like I keep that maybe for like closer to October. But then Gilmore Girls is like back to school vibes and like
Yeah.
right, like also Northeast vibes.
Did I
And
ever
then
tell
Vampire
you I
Diaries
got
is
to
just
sing on
Halloween.
the I can't speak Gilmore Girls set, like the
Oh my
Warner
gosh,
Brothers set. It
no.
was really funny. And like we took pictures. I did like, so anybody doesn't know. And this actually brings us to Shea too, because Shea's a musical theater performer. She talks about it a little bit in the show. Um, but in my past life and sometimes my current life, I'm still a musical theater performer when I'm not podcasting and health coaching. But yeah, I did a like the Warner Brothers Christmas party, which
Oh,
if
so
anybody
fun.
doesn't, this is so LA, like one of the lots. So the back lot at Warner Brothers Studios is the Gilmore Girls set. And it's like been used for so many other shows too. Some
Pretty
of
Little
which
Liars was also
yeah,
filmed
Pretty Little
there.
Liars. That's right.
Mhm.
I was trying to remember what some of the other ones are. And so, but they still have like Luke's Diner up. I'm sure they changed it
Mhm.
out, but I'm sure they put like a bunch of stuff up for the Christmas celebration that year. And it wasn't that long ago, actually. Just a couple years ago, but it was fun because like we got to take pictures in front of Luke's Diner, and I basically performed. They set up a big stage in the like the center where there's like the big gazebo. Like I
That's
don't know if
so
it's like the
cool.
town hall or whatever it is at Gilmore Girls. So it's fun. That's like a fun little LA story.
The Warner Brothers tour, I'm not a
Hmm,
performer like you and Shay, so I have not been there to perform, but I did do the Warner Brothers tour. And if you are visiting LA, I highly recommend it. It's
it's good
actually really fun. And so many iconic shows
shows.
were filmed
Yeah.
there and they filmed Friends there, but they
Mhm.
tore down the set, but they've rebuilt it. So
Yeah.
they kind of have like a Friends. It's really, which is another fall comfort show for me too. I love Friends so much. But yeah, that's really cool that you got to perform
It's
there. It's
fun. Yeah,
so
I loved Gilmore Girls too. It was such a fun era of TV. For me, actually, speaking of me and Shay and musical theater nerds, I am really enjoying season 3 of Only Murders in the Building. I'm not
oh,
that
I
far
love it
along,
too.
but like they're
Mhm.
doing some hardcore like theater stuff. So for all the theater nerds out there, it's a lot of fun. Also like the guest stars are Paul Rudd and Meryl Streep. So, you
That's
know,
great. I
casual.
love Howard and like his like
Howard's the
Howard is so
best.
good. Oh
So
my God.
funny.
Yeah.
Is it Ashley Park too? She's really
Mhm.
great. Um, yeah, so it's a fun cast this season. And Jesse, what's his name? He's so cute, but I can't
Oh,
remember his
Jesse
last name.
Williams, right?
Jesse
Is it Jesse
Williams. Yeah.
Williams? He's
Jesse, what's his name?
beautiful.
Sorry, Jesse, what's his name? It's Jesse Williams. So beautiful.
If he's listening,
I
we
doubt he's a listener
apologize.
to Courageous Wellness. Anyway, so that's fun. And I've been also another like music show. My husband and I have been watching George and Tammy, which is about George Jones and Tammy Wynette, the country singers duo, famous duo from years back. Um, but it stars Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain, and they're so excellent. Like they're really excellent in it. I'm only a few episodes in, but he in particular, for so many years, he's been a character actor and like a really good one. Like I just feel like
Mm.
everything you see Michael Shannon in, he's good.
Yeah.
But and he does film and television and play like Broadway theater, and he just kind of does everything. He's a very versatile guy, and I feel like he's also the type of guy who like maybe not everybody knows the name, you know what I mean?
But
Like
they know the face.
they know the face, but he's playing George Jones, and I've never seen him as like a leading man before, and he's like very excellent. So yeah, you don't have to be a fan of country music too to like the show. Like I think it's just about their relationship, and anyway, I'm enjoying it so far. So that's my content update, but we have a great conversation with
We
Shay.
do.
We should get to that. It's way more important. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey has wonderful spas. Los Angeles, we have a couple, Chicago, they're around Texas. Um, and you can use code CW podcast for 20% off any of their spa services. They also have an online boutique. They carry their own hyperclean products in addition to other lines such as Osea Malibu, Moon Juice, Super Goop. The list goes on. And that code CW podcast also will get you 20% off on their website, on their online boutique. So, with that, shall we get to our intro officially? Okay. So, on this episode of Courageous Wellness, we have a wonderful conversation with Shea Gomez, founder and creator of the online platform No Booze Babes, offering alcohol free tips, tricks, and sober sips. Shea works to normalize and glamorize an alcohol free life and create community around booze free living.
Today on the podcast, Shea shares her journey with alcohol and her decision to give up alcohol entirely. She classifies her previous drinking as gray area drinking that I feel like so many young women can relate to. When she realized that alcohol was holding her back from being the best version of herself, and after she had a bad open bar experience, Shea committed to a 3-month break that has now led to 4+ years of sobriety. Shea is a really wonderful resource in the sober curious and booze free community, and we really enjoyed this conversation, and we hope you do too. Hi, guys. Before we get to today's episode, we want to share how excited we are to offer our community 20% off their first order at Sakara with code XOCourageous. We have been big fans of the company for years, and the Sakara Life organic meal delivery program is based on a whole food, plant-rich diet that includes fresh, nutrient-dense, and delicious ingredients. It's perfect for those weeks you need a refresh or don't have time to meal prep.
They also have a clean boutique, which offers delicious food forward bars, snacks, beauty water drops, and my personal favorite, metabolism super powder, which works to fire up your metabolism, stabilize blood sugar, eliminate bloat, and decrease puffiness. The naturally rich, low sugar, dark chocolate flavor is perfect for smoothies or simply mixed with coffee and nut milk. I also regularly use the Sakara cookbook full of plant-rich recipes, which you can purchase on their website. Click the link in our show notes to visit sakara.com and use code XOCourageous for 20% off your first order. We know you will love it as much as we do. Now, on to the episode.
So welcome, Shea. We are very excited to have this conversation with you, and we know a lot of our audience is interested in this topic. And so to kick us off, can you share a little bit about your own personal journey in wellness and how it led to No Booze Babes?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you both. Obviously, I love talking about this alcohol-free lifestyle because it has literally changed my life for the better in so many ways. So when it comes to my personal journey, I would say with drinking, I was a very social drinker. Like I'm a very social girl. I love to like go out, meet new people, be on the dance floor all night, all that good stuff. I live in New York City. I'm originally from California. I went to college in Boston and I went to college for musical theater. So I'm here pursuing musical theater. That's what brought me to New York. But I really like didn't drink in high school. I wasn't like part of the party group. I was like very much the good girl, following all the rules. And like, I'm an older sister. I try to set an example. So all of that kind of like just made me who I am. And so I didn't start drinking till like sophomore year of college, but even so, wasn't crazy. Like theater is such a big focus for me. And honestly, I was always concerned with like my singing voice. So I was like, I can't be drinking and drying myself out and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until I graduated college and I feel like there was a lot of unknowns, just like where do I fit into the world? What am I doing? My parents were going through a divorce. I went through a big breakup. I was about to move to New York City and I was kind of alone in Boston, like, finishing out my lease. And so I was drinking a lot. I, work in the service industry because it's a very flexible job with theater. You're able to audition during the day and go to work at night and make that money, la, la, la. But that's really like I would work and then go out and I'd like see the sun come up and I just kind of like got swept up in all of that. And I was in my early 20s too. So I was like, I'm living my best life, like cheersing and this and that. And I think we have this idea of like that, like cheersing and going out and like drinking is like sophisticated and glamorous. And you see all these like women in like the media or film and TV, whatever it may be. And you're like, I want to be like that. And so I was right there, like drinking and cheersing and drinking like Cosmos, like I was on Sex in the City, like all that stuff. Um, but I really just, I had my time, all of that. But as I got into my, late 20s, alcohol just affected me differently. I also had more responsibilities. I also was in a relationship. And so I was realizing that alcohol is really taking away from the life that I wanted to live. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be clear headed. I wanted to be reliable. I wanted to be a good partner, sister, friend. I wanted to be like a good worker, like a good employee. And so I realized that, I kind of became a different person when I was drinking. I would black out a lot. I was prone to blackouts. I know not everyone is, and I'm really jealous of the people that aren't. But I would black out and I wouldn't remember how I got home. I'd be like, do I have my credit card? Do I have this? I, would get bad hangovers. Like my body was like, this ain't it anymore, girl. And I just didn't love it. But I think what held me back from cutting alcohol out of my life is because I guess I'm what you consider like a gray area drinker. And I think the gray area is so important to talk about because sobriety isn't so black and white. It's not like you're an addict, you're stumbling and bumbling and hiding alcohol. Like, of course, that can be people's journey and like everyone's on their own path. But I also like wasn't drinking every day. I was just like drinking when I would go out and then I would kind of lose track of like how much I was drinking. I wasn't like counting. I was just swept up in like having fun and people were like, hey, can I get you another? Blah, blah, blah. Just the social scene kind of thing. So I was like, I don't know. Like I did breaks. I did like dry January, sober October, all of that to kind of like check in with myself and be like, I'm good. Like, we're good. We can do a month. We're fine. But I would kind of go back to the same, like just social drinking and all of that. And, I just kind of like went through that cycle and I just, like I said, I was in a relationship during that time too. And like, it's one thing when I was like stumbling home and not remembering getting home and I was alone and I could just kind of be with my own shame and be like, oh God, like I feel so embarrassed. Like, what did I say last night or this and that? And also it is drinking and being single is very different too. You're like, I'm making out with everyone on the dance floor, like, so when you're in a relationship and then you're coming home and then you're kind of like groggy the next morning and you can't show up as your best self for your partner. Like that also was like, this sucks. Like I can't do this. So really it took me like, I went to a wedding of a person I went to high school with, and I was so anxious going into this wedding. And I was drinking rosé as I was getting ready. I took full advantage of the open bar, all this stuff. And, it was just a horrible night. And it was kind of like my last straw, I guess, where I was just like, I am in control of my life, but like I get out of control when I drink. I don't like who I am. I don't know who that is. and it's holding me back from being my best self. So I took a 3-month break. I was like, okay, obviously this month break is like not working because I do the same thing. But I was like, 90 days, amazing. Like, it's not forever, because forever felt really big back then. And so I had like an end date. But what I found was that I really sat with myself, and like read quit literature, and I really realized that like all along I was kind of silencing this voice, or just quieting this voice that was saying like maybe your life would be better without alcohol. And as I took the break, that voice kind of got louder, and I also just felt so good. I didn't have hangovers, and I kept extending the break. And now I just hit 4 months booze free, and it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I started No Booze Babes at 6 months of sobriety. And honestly, that was kind of like me, kind of my like, hey everyone, I'm not drinking, like my little like sober coming out party of like, I'm launching this page. And I think just support and community is so huge, just feeling like you're not alone, because a lot of the feelings that I had, or my worries I had, like, could I go out? Could I date? Could I this? Whatever. There are other people feeling that too. And so it just lifted a little bit of weight off of my shoulders. And I wanted a safe space where people could be supported and celebrated, and show people that being booze free is so beautiful for so many reasons. And you can still dress up and go out and do your little cute cheersing Instagrams or whatever, and like still live this beautiful life, all hangover free and fully present. That is my long spiel.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I just wanted to confirm, I think you said 4 months, but you've been 4 years sober, right?
Wait, I said 4 months?
Yeah, but that's okay. I just want to
4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm 4 years sober. Wow.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I think, it's so interesting. This is not the first conversation that Erica and I are having on the podcast about relationship in general to alcohol, but it's been an ongoing sort of theme that's interested both of us, and in different ways at different times in our own journeys too. But the more we've kind of explored that, or explored sober curiosity, the more we've gotten exposed to work like yours. And just as you just said so beautifully, like understanding, and you've created this community, but knowing that this is out there and other people are feeling the same way. And I think, I'm curious to hear about your experience. You quit, you did that 3 months, and then you extended and stuff. But I think something that's come up for us is when you step away from that culturally, you start to recognize how normalized like our drinking culture is, and also how advertised it is, especially to women, from everything from like mommy juice to rosé all day to like all of these sort of very accepted sort of basically advertising campaigns of different kinds. And it's just constantly bombarded. Like I remember it was even this year, I had started with a dry January, and my husband was doing it with me, and we were out at a restaurant, and the first thing the server asks is, can I start you off with some cocktails or a glass of wine? And we said, no, thank you. Like, I'd like a club soda or whatever it might be. But I just had this hit where it was like, oh, well, what if I was in recovery and I had to deal with that every single time I went to a restaurant? Just like how prevalent it is in even the smallest little ways. And no fault to the server. I mean, I used to serve, and it's like, what can you sell that's going to cost the most money?
Yeah,
like it's not their fault, but it's just this idea that like, it's just everywhere. So as you started to, do your 3 months and extend that, and you really started to explore your own relationship with it, how did you in those earlier days navigate alcohol, and like alcohol, like the lifestyle that it tells you being everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what why those 3 months were so important for me, because I was navigating it. I was like, okay, so what do I do when I have a craving? Like, what do I do when like thoughts come into my head about like drinking or, um, I think it was so good to have that goal of 3 months because, I was able to sit with myself, sit with my feelings. As I said, I read some quit literature. I read This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and I just loved that it was a book that it wasn't like telling you like stop drinking. It was literally telling you the science behind like what goes on and like why we have cravings and like how long alcohol stays in your system. So like it was telling us what alcohol, like how alcohol affects you, mind, body, spirit, you know what I mean? And so I felt like less crazy. Like I felt really seen, like, oh, this makes sense that I am wanting alcohol or that whatever it may be. And I feel really lucky too because like I had such a supportive partner. And that was really helpful because I didn't go out as much. Like I kind of had to protect this goal at that time. Like obviously I protect my sobriety every day now, but protect this goal of mine. And so like I remember getting rid of all of the alcohol in her place. And I think we had like wine or whatever, but I was like, I am doing this goal. Like, but I had like seltzers and kombuchas and all this stuff so that when I had a craving, I could just pour myself something. I think like having something in your hand or a drink, because I feel like alcohol can be such a crutch, like finding kind of replacements that like, oh, it's not that I want to pour myself a glass of wine. It's that I associate cooking dinner with also opening a bottle of wine. Like, so let me change that, like rewire my thinking and just like pour a yummy seltzer and like, put a little citrus in there in a wine glass. Like, and that made me feel like I was still having that ritual that I was used to, but it wasn't something that was, taking away from my goal but also, taking me out of the present moment, which alcohol did for me. It made things fuzzier. So I think that just, yeah. And like I said, not going out as much because I feel like that's when I would drink is like being social. So kind of just protecting myself in that way. But when I did go out too, it was like takes practice to be like, what do I say? Like, what do I order? So just kind of like setting myself up for success beforehand and being like, okay, so I'm going to go to the bar, order a club soda with Splash of Crayon, like having a drink in my hand. No one will be like, do you need a drink? Do you want a drink? Like, you'll have something and you'll be okay. Having like an exit strategy if like I felt uncomfortable or if I was like, I don't know, like I'm kind of feeling tempted to have a drink, like let me just peace out before then. So just again, just it was all kind of navigating, and I think everyone's path is different. Going to work and coming right home instead of like going out with my coworkers where I knew I'd be tempted and people would have drinks waiting for me. And it got easier, but it takes practice and it takes time. And again, I think it really takes that rewiring of like old habits.
We want to take a quick break from this episode to tell you about BTR Nation. BTR is a female-founded food brand that is on a mission to end mindless snacking with their protein bars with a purpose. BTR bars and chocolate truffle cups are plant-based and made with no gluten, no dairy, no soy, no added sugar, no corn or rice syrups, no GMOs, no natural flavors, no sugar alcohols, no stevia, no inflammatory ingredients, and no gums or fillers. It's the cleanest label in the category. They only use ingredients that you can pronounce and adaptogenic superfoods like reishi, lion's mane, and cordyceps.
Allie and I love BTR bars and always have them in our cabinets. I am currently loving the cinnamon cookie dough energy bars, and the cherry dark chocolate truffle cups are my favorite sweet treat. Founder and owner Ashley Marie found inspiration for her brand in an unlikely place at an unlikely time, at the hospital cafeteria. When both of her parents were diagnosed with cancer, her life turned upside down as she became their caretaker and her own nutrition began to suffer. Ashley was devouring protein bars when she could, as many of us do, to fit in a meal or a snack. Most of the bars she quickly discovered were filled with sugar. After her parents passed away, she founded her bar brand based on their family mantra: be bold, tenacious, and resilient. BTR.
If you want to try BTR bars and truffle cups, you can save 20% on your order with code Courageous Wellness at btrnation.com. You can also find this link in our show notes and Linktree on Instagram.
I think, as you mentioned in your journey, this gray area of alcohol, I think that's a really important space to have on the internet and a space to talk about, because I think historically it's always been like, well, you're an alcoholic or you're a drinker, right? Or then maybe there's some people who just choose not to drink. But most of the time when you think of, oh, well, even my husband, he stopped drinking out of college. He stopped drinking after college by choice. And people are always like, but why? Do you know what I mean? Like, so he just didn't like the way drinking tasted, but people are always curious, like, but you must have a problem if you don't drink, right? So I think there's this gray area that you're talking about of people who maybe they don't like the way it makes them feel. They don't like the way it tastes, or like, even myself, like I've taken extended periods. I took a year off of drinking after the pandemic, and I've taken many, I'm many like long breaks, and it's changed my relationship with alcohol tremendously, because I don't consider myself really a drinker anymore. So it's a very different experience. It's more of like but I think the bigger thing here is, it's like when you hear that intuitive call, I think there's a lot of, as you're mentioning, well, like, how am I going to socialize with my friends? How am I going to date? How am I going to do X, Y, and Z? And so I'm curious too, you mentioned that you kind of like came out at 6 months with No Booze Babes, and that was like your big announcement. But how did you really navigate the questions from friends or family? Did you have any of that noise? And was there anyone who wasn't supportive of your journey in your life? Because I think that's a fear a lot of people have as well.
Yeah. I I guess I navigated it by, I don't know, it was just like, I think what was nice is that I had the 3-month break. So people weren't as, like, I guess, intimidated, because they were like, oh my God, you're never drinking again. Because what I do realize is you not drinking is going to have people also kind of feel weird about their drinking. Like if they have any sort of questioning of their relationship, whatever, like I've noticed the people who kind of nag or have like a weird reaction, like that has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them and either their relationship or how they feel about, I don't know, just drinking in general. I feel really lucky because a lot of my family and friends were so supportive, because they love me for me. They didn't love me for drinking me. And I don't think anyone loved her. She was actually horrible. But but I did notice that who my drinking friends were versus my just friends who are just my friends I could talk to without drinking. Like I, got a little like some, less invites, I guess, to like go out or go get like bottle service or go get all this stuff. And that was fine because during those 3 months too, like I didn't want to be around any of that. But, friendships have definitely faded, but my friends who have always been my best friends, our relationship is just deepened. Like, I think that's what's so cool. Like, I feel like my connections are deeper and truer with people because I am connected to myself. And so I'm able to show up as my best self. And I feel like sobriety has allowed me to get to really know me because I actually have to like feel my feelings and not numb them and not delay them by like drinking. I have to sit with like the good feelings and the bad ones and the things that make me uncomfortable and really like question myself. Um and that hasn't always been easy, but it's been so amazing because when I meet new people and everything, I feel just clearer and I feel just confident in myself and who I'm showing up as for everyone, even me being like serving at this membership club I'm working at, like I'm showing up as my best server self. Like, and like what you were saying, Allie, about being like, can I serve cocktails, blah, blah, blah. Being like a no booze babe in the service industry, I am so aware of people like not drinking or whatever. So I literally say like, can I start with like cocktails, mocktails? Like I try to be more inclusive with my language just because it would be important for me. Like if I was at a table, I'd feel like so seen if
Yeah.
someone did that. But yeah, I feel lucky that my friends are like still my best friends. And I've also made some new friends that are really good ones because of sobriety. A lot of them are internet friends too, which is so fun.
Well, like we were talking about, I mean, this community that you've built and grown, I think this movement of, I'm going to call it sober curious. I know that's sort of like the buzzy way to talk about it because it explores all the gray area and all the gray relationships and with alcohol. And what's been really, really kind of cool, even in the last year, and I see it in LA, I've seen it in New York. I was in London in the spring and I even saw it in London. I kind of was surprised, but pleasantly surprised, where there are many, many more mocktail options. We even have like, and I know in New York too, but like there's some 0 proof bars opening, and you don't have to compromise the social experience. And it used to be that like mocktails were all just like sugar water. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's still the case, but a lot of times they're like really lovely, refreshing, not crazy sweet things too, that are like equally as enjoyable, or like made with botanicals, and maybe even um are beneficial to our health too, maybe support us in different ways, or use, I don't know, fun functional mushrooms or whatever it is that's like available, and the more I see that kind of in the mainstream, the more excited I get, because as Erica was saying, she took a really long time off of booze. Something clicked for me this year because I was always like a drinker. We did an episode with Dr. Brooke. What's Dr. Brooke's last name?
Dr. Brooke Scheller.
Scheller. Do you know her? Her work?
Yes. So
Yeah.
wonderful.
And she was saying, or you guys were joking, you're like, oh, Allie's the kind of person who can drink a half a glass of wine and that's it. Like, and she was like, well, why would you drink it? And I was like, because I enjoy it and I can do that. But then it really forced me to like really explore even that little gray area, even though I had like a lot of control around my drinking. And it was interesting because like after dry January, I just felt really good and I didn't feel the desire to drink. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to not drink now. It's just like, I'm going to continue this because I'm feeling so good. And if I want to drink, I might get curious or experiment with it. And I have done that a handful of times. And some of the times, maybe like 3 times this year, I've really enjoyed it and had one and felt fine after. And there have been a couple times where like in celebratory things, I've even ordered I'll have 1 glass of champagne kind of thought. And maybe this has happened like, what are we in? We're like end of summer. So maybe this has happened like 6 or 7 times this entire year. That's like how many drinks I can count that I've had. But there were a couple of those times where I started to sip it and I was like, you know what? I don't want this. Like, this isn't making me feel good right now. And like the sensitivity around being so in tune with myself about that, where I'd be like, then I just like give it to my husband and not finish it. And then really just like it's forced me. I think when you remove the alcohol, it really gets you highly sensitive to how you feel when you explore that again. It's so sensitive for me that it took 2 sips to be like, this is not what my body wants. Like I can fully, and then I can make that action, which I didn't have that same kind of awareness when it was just much more like habitual, even though it wasn't all the time. It was something that was like regular enough. And I have to say, like, something just switched. And so if anybody doesn't feel like they're in a place where they necessarily have a problem, but wants to kind of explore and get more aware of how it's making them feel, like, I think finding communities like yours can really help support that. And I guess my question is, now that you've built No Booze Babes with this online community, what do you find yourself and what do you find other people like talking about in their exploration of their relationship? Do you find people going completely sober, or do you find people are also able to transform their relationships? Like everybody's different. And I guess my question is just, can you share with us like some of the experiences that you're hearing of others as well in the community?
Yeah, well, I think I just want to say that No Booze Babes, there's a reason why it's No Booze Babes, and I didn't use sober in like the name because I find that sobriety is such a negative stigma that kind of people are like, whoa, I'm not like, my drinking's not problematic. I don't have a problem. I'm not an alcoholic. All these things, all these like words that get thrown around that have the negative stigma. I wanted to be approachable for people who are sober curious, mindful drinkers. They consider themselves hangover free. I think we get so stuck in labels where it's like, I have to fit inside some box.
Yeah.
If I don't, and that's what held me back from stopping, because I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. Like, I'm not having to rely on alcohol all the time, but like, so I don't think I have a quote unquote problem. But like when I would drink, I would cause problems and it was problematic for me. So I was like, well, what does it mean for me? Again, this gray area of like, where do I fit? I think what's so beautiful about the community is that everyone has a different story. Everyone's on their own journey, whether that's wanting to be more mindful and just coming to No Booze Babes to see like non-alcoholic options, which I share about all the time. Or if they're pregnant and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm for 9 months I can't drink, so like what are my options? Whether they're here for dry January, whether they just want some inspo, whether they're kind of curious and they're kind of secretly following, like I know I did that in the beginning. I was like secretly following like these sober Instagrams. So I find that, I have people come to me and really they're just kind of like wanting permission to do what is best for them. And so again, I'm not like a coach. I'm like, so she can do it, then like of course I could do it too. Um so I'm noticing that people are like, hey, I want to stop drinking, or hey, like I'm interested in cutting back and whatever it may be. And like I always encourage people to like listen to themselves, because I think that's, we get so distracted by like, society, like we were talking about before, like the advertisements and like the glamorization of alcohol and the normalization of like being hungover and like, woo, party too hard last night, all of these things. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can just want more for yourself. You can just say, I just need a break. My body doesn't feel good. I know that there's something better for me. I think it's just like also realizing that, you can worry about like, what are people going to think? Like, what if people don't want to date me because of this or whatever? Your people will love you for you. And also no one else has to walk in your shoes. No one else has to feel the anxiety that you feel. No one else has to be hungover. That's you, your head over the toilet. You know what I mean? Like, so they can be like, let's go, let's do this. But like, you have to just listen to yourself. And I think that also comes from me not listening to myself for so long. And finally, when I, again, let that voice get a little bit louder, I was like, oh, this is it. And this is what's best for me. And so, no one else has to live my life but me. So I want to live a life that I'm really proud of.
We want to take a quick break from this episode to tell you about today's sponsor, Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey is a female-founded and funded brand that began as luxury day spas in Austin, Texas, and has since grown to include 8 locations across Texas, Chicago, and Los Angeles, as well as a line of bath, body, and skincare born from the spa. One of Milk and Honey's best-selling products is the natural deodorant, which is loved by Zoe Kravitz and was featured in her Vogue Beauty Secrets video. In addition to clean deodorant, their online boutique also offers a wide variety of clean beauty products from top brands, including Osea Malibu, Virtue, Moon Juice, and more. Some of my favorite products include Milk and Honey's Gel Cleanser, the Super Goop Glow Screen and SPF 40, which I now buy on their site, and Osea's Body Oil and Vagus Nerve Oil, which activates the body's relaxation response and helps regulate stress.
Their spas are lovely, and we both are big fans of their treatments, and now offer discounts at both the online boutique and spa locations on all spa and med spa treatments. We are also thrilled to partner with Milk and Honey to offer a Courageous Wellness spa package called the Courageous Wellness Retreat at a discounted rate. The Courageous Wellness Retreat combines a 60-minute Milk and Honey signature massage, which is a Swedish massage tailored to your needs, focusing on relaxation and stress relief, combined with a body brushing treatment, an exfoliating and detoxifying treatment that uses a natural bristle brush that you get to take home that stimulates your lymph and circulation while also reviving dull skin. And from now through the end of the year, Milk and Honey has offered some exclusive specials for Courageous Wellness listeners to use at their spa locations. For any new or existing spa customers, you can save 20% on any spa service with code CW Podcast. And as a holiday treat from now through the end of the year, at Milk and Honey, Brentwood, and Culver City locations, bring a friend to the spa and you'll both take 50% off your spa service with code CW Bestie. You can find links to book at the spa, shop online, and all the codes in our show notes on our Instagram link tree or website. CW Bestie saves 50% for you and a friend at Los Angeles spa locations, and CW Podcast saves 20% online at the spa for new and existing customers on any treatment through the end of the year.
I love that. And I love, it's so interesting because this year, especially, I've really been like dismantling like the labels and boxes I put myself in. And I think a society that we put women in and we put, everything has to fit in this box. And so I think it's really beautiful the way you describe the community you're building, that it's label free and it's here for who needs it and when you need it. And I think that's when I discovered you, was during my big year off of alcohol. And I had felt like and we did a whole episode about my year off of alcohol, but I had felt that intuitive call. I had never been a big drinker until the pandemic. And so it was really like, as many people I'm sure listening, like I drink, like I said, my husband doesn't drink. He never drank. So I was like drinking bottles of wine by myself on the weekends during the pandemic. And I didn't feel good. My anxiety was out of control during an already anxiety inducing time. And I just kept hearing like this little voice being like, Erica, like, just stop. And similar to you, it started at 3 months and I felt so good. I decided to do it for an entire year. And then my journey continued where I was like, okay, let's experiment with adding this back in. It didn't really feel good. So I stopped drinking for another 6 months. And so I've been in this like exploration place, but the greatest gift it's given me, which is why I said, like, why I wouldn't classify. I used to be, especially during the pandemic, like such a drinker. If I was out, if I was socializing, there was a drink in my hand. And that is not me at all anymore, because I learned, my big breakthrough during that year off of drinking was I went to like my first sober concert. And I don't think I had ever, since I was a teenager, gone to a sober concert. And I had the time of my life. And it was a big transformation for me. And so even, tomorrow I'm going to a concert, and the idea of being drunk at that concert sounds horrible. I was like, I want to be present and sing and dance and dress up. Like, the idea of being drunk sounds awful. Like, why would I want to miss out on being present? And so that's something that has really, like, I want to be present in a way that I'm not when I even have a drink. And it's really, and like you said, the more I also read Quit Lit and, the more you research about what alcohol does for your body, it does. It's like, I think education is really important in a way that when I started drinking, we were never really like, it wasn't even an option of, do you want to drink? It's just, this is what happens when you go to college and you drink. And so I think reclaiming your choice is really powerful, and finding it can feel isolating, which is why finding Instagram accounts like yours during, especially like it's nice to have different perspectives. And I'm curious too, because a lot of people, might be interested in like mocktail culture and non-alcoholic drinks. And I know you talk a lot about that. Could you share too, maybe what are some of your favorite mocktails or non-alcoholic drinks? I know you mentioned like having a club soda with a splash of cranberry when you're out, or I don't know if you have any tried and true favorites that you'd recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, also thank you for sharing that. Like, I think what's so beautiful is that a break can lead to so many breakthroughs. And it's so important. And also just made me think, like I always say, like, what's the fun in a night you can't remember? Like when you at the concert, like it just kind of takes you out. And like a lot of the time when I was like, I'm living it up in the city, like I'm seeing the sun come up. And then I couldn't even remember like what I said and stuff. I was like, and then I'm looking at my like debit card statement. I'm like, uh, what am I doing? Like, what is going on? Now it's fun because I spend my money on like cute clothes or like a really fabulous meal, like, or, I just have saved a lot of money like sipping on mocktails. So we love that. Even though some mocktails are really expensive, but like, I think in the service industry, like I want people to know as they incorporate more zero proof options, like we will pay for a good mocktail. Like Ali was saying before, like we don't just want the sugary, like all the mix of every juice you have behind the bar, like I think what's so fun is seeing zero proof lists that are incorporating like alcohol free spirits, that are incorporating more alcohol free beers. So like my go-tos, I love a mocktail moment. I'm not a good like mocktail mixologist myself, so if there's a fancy great one on a menu, I will get it. And also I just want to say, I know that non-alcoholic alternatives are not for everyone. That's again another thing that is important to explore, whether that will trigger you to want the real thing, whether that makes you feel weird. But for me, it's been really helpful with my sobriety because I feel included, because I'm sipping on something that again is not altering my state of mind, but it is like a great option for me. So when I go, there's always a club soda there. So always a club soda with crayon is a classic. You're hydrating, we love. And then the crayon gives a little sweetness. I love a non-alcoholic beer. A lot of places, especially in New York, have Heineken Zero, which I always do with a little lime. Love. Athletic Brewing is pretty much everywhere now too. Their IPA is amazing. I never even drank IPAs when I did drink alcohol, but that one's a good one. What else? If they have a zero proof list again, I will drink it, especially if it incorporates like, I'll see some like Liars or some Seedlip is very common. Anything like that, I'll definitely get. But I also like too, if I'm at like some divey bar and they haven't gone with the program yet, like I'll get a Diet Coke with lime. Like also when you don't drink, like you're not having that fake energy fueled by alcohol. So like you need the espresso shot, you need the Diet Coke, you need the disco nap before you go out, So just my routine and my pregame for going out has changed a little bit, and definitely for the better though.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, those are all so great. And I've started to enjoy some. I really love, have you had Gia?
Yes, the Gia like spritz.
I love it because it's super bitter. So it feels like a Negroni or something like that. But it's definitely for people who like the bitters. But there really are so many good options now. And you make a good point when you're talking about like, you're not going to have this alcohol like infused sort of fake energy. But also then you don't have the same kind of crash. And I'm now in my late 30s, and I have to say, really like almost eliminating alcohol from my life. The quality of sleep, it's just, you can't even it's shocking, like the difference from even 10 years ago. I know it feels like, oh, that's a long time, but it's like you don't ever really feel different. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, my sleep, like it matters. And if I had even a couple drinks one night now on a Friday, I'd still be feeling it on a Sunday, even if I hadn't gotten drunk. Like it's just like a dehydration thing. Sorry, everybody, but this just happens as you get older, and it's like, it's real. And then you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to wake up. I don't have 2 days of my life to like recover, there's enough other stuff that I want to do with my time. And so when you were mentioning like the energy thing, I think that's really huge. And then the older you get, the more, just like the more relevant the energy thing becomes. And, that's the biggest benefit that I've had of not even having, like, even foregoing like the 2 glasses of wine that I would have occasionally. Like, it's just a different ball game. And you know what you're saying, Shay, like you start to do when you started to read Quit Lit and do more research, and Dr. Brooke talks about this from like the nutrition standpoint. I've I have wine makers in my family who live in France, in my husband's side of the family. And he's like he loves wine from like a hobby standpoint and that kind of thing. But what I started to notice as I did more research too, which is like what you get to do when you explore this stuff, is that even a lot of the wine that's imported from Europe to the States are different types of sulfites are added to them for preservation. And so we used to go to visit them and I'd be able to drink wine, no problem, like more than I did at home. And I'd wake up feeling fine. And I'd have one glass of the same kind that was imported. And I'd feel like shit for days. And then I realized, oh, my body is having a serious response, not just to the alcohol, but to what's in the drinks, what's put in the alcohol. And I think it's like all of these things, the education around it. It's like when you want to start feeling good, it becomes an easier decision to make, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I experienced some of the same things as you, and which led to me doing a break because it became a guessing game. Like it wasn't just on the nights where I was like, oh, I drink a lot. Like, of course I don't feel good. Sometimes I would just be like having 2 glasses of wine with my partner and I'd be like, oh God, just a little fuzzy. And I'm like, sometimes I'd be okay. Other times I'd be like, again, I'm sure my sleep was affected too. So I just felt a little cloudy and I'm like, this sucks. I expect it on the big nights out, but not on like an intimate, like us cooking dinner and having 2 glasses of wine. Like, so that it wasn't like a fun game to play. And yeah, I mean, sleep quality and just like my body can actually tell me what it
Mhm.
needs. And like I remember I would get sick a lot more often when I was drinking because my body was like trying to like fight things and just like help me try to feel better. And I couldn't, the amount of water I drank, like I still felt horrible.
Mhm.
I was drinking like Pedialyte. Like I remember, and this is so bad, like I would go have like a bunch of wine and then on my way home, I would buy like a Pedialyte so that I would try to prevent a hangover the next day so that I could sleep. It's still like at some point in my late 20s, my body was still like, nah, like we're not going to help you. Even if you try to hydrate, try to eat, try to do all these things, like it just wasn't processing it the same way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like once I stopped drinking, like even if I'm really tired, I still feel so much better. I think that like I also am so grateful for the little things like waking up and going on a walk and like hearing the birds chirp and hearing all this. Like everything became more beautiful. Like colors are brighter and like sounds are, I don't know. I just was like, wow, was I missing out on this? Because I was like,
Yeah,
the next morning, like
Yeah.
a
as soon
hundred
as it
percent.
is.
Yeah. Well, and it's true because alcohol is a toxin. So it does, it's like, let's just call it what it is. It's a toxin. So it's biologically, when you ingest a toxin, your body is going to stop doing everything else until it gets rid of that toxin, right? So that's why your immune system gets weakened. Your sleep is impacted, digestion, even if people have fitness goals, right? Like fat burning turns off when we ingest alcohol because our whole body wants to protect itself and it's like get this poison out of me. So literally biologically our bodies the second we have a drink starts working to get rid of it and not do other important functions. So that's why it's of course you get sick and tired and all of this stuff when people drink chronically. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious too, Shay, you mentioned sober dating, and I feel like that is something that is a concern of some people if they feel the call to stop drinking. Like you said, like, well, what is this person going to think? And I know we know, and we've talked about if it's the right person, the right people, they're going to support you. But do you have any tips for sober dating that you could share?
Yeah, I have like a whole highlight on my Instagram page. And I also have, I of course have not kept it updated, but I have like blog posts on it. And I literally break down the dating apps and what I write because I know not everyone feels comfortable with this, but this is what helped me is just being very open about the fact that I don't drink, using like those little like icons, like they have the like no drinking or no smoking or whatever, and so I have the like no alcohol in there. I also use the prompts to my advantage. If the, there's a prompt I believe on Hinge that says one thing you should know about me is, and I did, what I wrote was I don't drink, but I don't mind if you do, and did a little like cheeky emoji or something just to like have fun, because like I of course don't want a partner who is drinking all the time and that's like what they do, but like I don't judge other people. That's why, again, with No Booze Babes, it's the party everyone's invited to. You can come and go as you please, because you do you and I'll do me. Like, this is definitely what's best for me. But I'm never like preachy and being like, everyone should do this, even though I'm like, listen to your heart, like listen to yourself. And if you feel the call to be against the alcohol, live your dreams. But yeah, so I'm very open about it. And I feel like it weeds out the people who are not for you. Because if they're like, oh my gosh, like she doesn't drink, like good, then you won't match with them, and then you'll save yourself some steps, because you want someone that loves you for all of you. And also it's fun because you get to be more creative with dates. The go-to is like, let's grab a drink. Like, and then if the date's going well, you grab more drinks. Then you're like, do I even like this person? Then it's like fuzzy. And, it's just, I don't know. I feel like I've met so many more quality people because I don't drink. And people are also like, I've made cool connections because of it. Like they'll message me and be like, oh my gosh, this is so refreshing. Like I'm so sick of the first date drink situation. They're like, let's go like on a walk, let's go get coffee, let's go to museum, something that's like an activity. And I feel like also you get to know someone so much more doing an activity or like in the daylight, and not like a dim, like anyone could look at it dim lighting, that's my best lighting for sure, but like, like you're just able to really connect with someone and see like, do I actually like this person or not? So just be encouraged by that, and just know that you are enough on your own. And I think dating without drinking is like so exciting, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but like how beautiful is it that you get to like actually sit with those feelings and see what's out there.
Yes. I think that's such good advice. And I think it also applies to friendships too. And that's also what's really fun. It's like if you do have friends that are exploring that for themselves, like you have all those options. Like I feel like now my friends are like, you want to go for a hike, you want to meet for lunch, and it used to just be like, yeah, let's meet up for a drink, but it's like changed so much. And so I think you make so many good points in that, and I think it is really encouraging for any kind of social interaction. So I'm sure we could talk to you for hours, but as we wrap up, we always ask our guests 3 wrap-up questions. And the first one is, what does your daily self-care look like? Do you have any non-negotiables for yourself during the day?
My skincare routine has become such an important thing to me. And honestly, like getting sober helped my skin so much. Like, I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but like when you start taking care of your body and not like allowing toxins in, like you do start to glow from the inside out. You start to see outward changes. Because I just start feeling better, and I'm hydrating a lot more, that's for sure. But I'm just taking care of the skin that I'm in, and I'm just aware of like what my body needs. So that's really special to me. I do it day and night. I have like a million steps. I'm 31 years old, and like I want to feel good, look good. And again, I think that like getting sober is the best thing that I've done for my skin and my body and just my overall well-being. Also just a thing that maybe might be silly to say for self-care, but like I'm always listening to music. Like I think that music can set the tone. I literally have a candle lit. I have fresh flowers, like just surrounding myself with things that make me happy. And then of course, people that make me happy as well. I also like to move my body. I'm a girl who I love a walk. Like if I can walk there, especially in New York City, you can walk everywhere. I will like walk the 30 minutes to meet my friend or to go to a cute coffee shop. Just kind of like taking time for myself. And I love a hot shower. So I shower like maybe twice a day. Like it's maybe too much, but love myself in the shower.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Music is such a big part of my self-care too. And yeah, I love all of that. My skin never was better than when I stopped. That was the first thing I noticed more than anything. I was like, wow, I'm glowing after like a month. I was like, wow, 3 months. It was wild. Question though, too, what is your astrological sign? This is not one of our wrap up questions. I'm just curious because I loved all your self-care things.
I'm a Taurus.
You're a Taurus, Venus ruled. I'm a Libra. So nice. Yeah.
Love.
Libra and Tauruses are both ruled by Venus for anyone listening. So yeah, vibe with all your self-care. The next official question we always ask is, what does being courageous mean to you?
Ooh, what is being courageous? I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage to do what's best for you and kind of maybe do something that is against what society like deems as cool. And I think, it takes a lot of courage to like live your truth and to silence everyone else's opinions. I think that's really hard, but it's so beautiful when you listen to that voice inside, whether that's, hey, like maybe drinking's not for you, or hey, like maybe this friendship is not a two-way street anymore, like whatever it may be. I think it takes courage to be yourself and be true to yourself.
Thank you. And then the final question is, and you already touched on this a little bit, but do you have a book recommendation? And it can really be on any subject. It doesn't have to be Quit Lit, but anything you'd want to share with our audience that just meant something to you along your journey?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, This Naked Mind by Annie Grace was so huge for quit literature wise. Like that, I literally ordered that on Amazon right away because a friend recommended it to me when I came to him crying, being like, I can't do this to myself. And it was just approachable and non-judgmental, and I loved it. Also, I love this. Um, this is just like, I guess it's like encouragement poetry. It's called A Gentle Reminder by Bianca Sferricino. She has a podcast as well. This helped me through like a big breakup of mine, but it has been just beautiful. I keep it by my bed, literally sitting on my bed right now. And it's just like really like choosing yourself and just like really inspirational and encouraging. And we can all use more of that, right? Always.
Well,
Thank you so
you.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today. We've really appreciated the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if anyone wants to find you, follow you, where can they do all the things?
All the things are happening on Nobu's Babes. That's on Instagram, TikTok. My sister and I actually had a podcast all about living our best lives alcohol free called The Real Sisters of Sobriety. So we were like, we don't need a strong drink to tell you what we really think because we just keep it real. We have one season of that, but I always like to point to that because, I mean, just like you babes are doing, like having a podcast to listen to as you're getting ready in the car, like you feel less alone. And we answer a lot of common questions that we get about socializing, dating, holidays, you name it. But yeah, Nobu's Babes is where it's at. And also my DMs are always open. I reply to all my DMs. So if you're, just like, hey, I need encouragement, or hey, I'm thinking of this, like I will be there to cheer you on.
Thank you so much. Everybody go check that out. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Courageous Wellness. Tune in every Wednesday for a new episode featuring a different guest each week.
Subscribe, rate, and write us a nice review. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Courageous Wellness, or get in touch via our website, www.courageouswellness.net, where you can also find additional info about our health coaching services, virtual group events, newsletter, and more.
Until next week, I'm Allie.
And I'm Erica, and we're Courageous Wellness.